At the time, we just really wanted to respond. You know, we worked through a lot of walking. That really sparks a lot of talking. So, there were a lot of discussions about what was going on in kind of the United States. You know, we're Americans, and we're like, we're proud to be here. How can we like play a role in some sort of difference? So we decided, we came up with this idea, and then we were like, well, how should we do it? And so then we structured this idea of what Rod's talking about, the referral basis. So then we just went around like we are here, pitching the idea of the American Obies. And then people will just you know, anybody that will recommend someone to us, they do, and then we'll go and shoot them regardless of the story, or, you know. And our hope is we go in knowing that whoever has recommended them thinks they're really special and important, has something that needs to be documented. And we try our best in the process of interviewing and filming to kind of capture that moment, or that kind of thing that someone else really finds fascinating about these people. So that kind of motivates the structure of the piece, and kind of why stylistically we chose to work that way. Because often we don't, like the Mexican couple, a friend of mine was just like, go see my grandparents. Like, they're awesome and I want you to document them. We didn't really have any clue why what we should talk to them about or what, but we knew, you know, and the whole family was like, please record our grandparents. So it took an hour and a half to interview them and really kind of find what it is like we could share about each one of them.
Yeah, trying to take a look at a country on an individual basis.
What's the division of labor between you two?
It's pretty much, well, it's always right down the middle, but it's also that the three kind of formats that we showed you guys, we're always working in. So we normally, like right now, we have about 4 projects that we're in the process of working on currently. So it's kind of a back and forth. Like, I'll be often the assistant editor, and I'll log all the information and catalog it, and then get completely burned out on all the note taking, all the stuff. So then I'll do kind of a rough, and I turn it over to Rod, and then he has these really fresh eyes, and he can go in and really take stuff that's not working, or sometimes just completely flip things to see if they're working. And it kind of goes back and forth. And the same as on set. It's just the two of us. And so if sometimes I'll be doing camera and he'll step back and see how the scene is working and things are playing out, and if something specific we're struggling with, he normally is back there to understand, like, well, let me try this since I've been observing, and then we'll switch, and then he'll do camera and I'll watch. So we kind of work that way throughout all the processes of filmmaking. Yeah, go.
Yet I noticed that for the credits, if you will, there's always more than just your names there. There's, there's been at least 4.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I don't.
Oh, yeah,
remember
that's
the names.
great.
Can't remember the names of it.
That's a good question. Credits are interesting. I was talking to this with another filmmaker last night, and for us, it's that we don't really put like titles in the credits, right? So for us, it's more of a creative process. So it's our 2 names plus whatever talent was involved as far as acting. We'll put their names, and then Robert's brother Ian is kind of the unofficial 3rd member, because he'll help us when we need music or compositions, and he also does a lot of web stuff for us. So we don't pay anybody, so this is the only way we can say thank you for his work. So we put his name, and then Sarah Peterson actually is a woman who gave us money to buy the camera that we've been shooting all these things on. So she's kind of our patron. So throw her name on there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
and also burn candles in the bathroom for her. So.
Well, it works.
In the bathroom.
Yeah, specifically in the bathroom. I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to.
How much time you spend, with Ella and Charlie as examples, how much time is spent just on audio for the sort of final piece?
Yeah, the audio is always the equivalent amount of shooting time, if not more. Because it's the 2 of us, and because we're not wealthy, that camera was like given to us. So it's like they gave us that camera, and we've done everything we can possibly. We're continually doing everything we can possibly do until it dies. Hopefully by that time someone will give us another camera. But because of that, we have to do sound completely separate, because we don't have a good sound system to record. So literally the sound on Charlie is me at like 4 in the morning in the farthest middle of nowhere of Davis I can get, with it on my phone and a microphone, and I'm running around trying to emulate his footsteps or his falling or his stuff like that. And then we strapped the microphone to his chest and had him run around breathing and humming and singing those songs. So it takes a long time because we really have to go to like moment by moment kind of creating.
Yeah, it's an interesting process because I think once you divide the sound and the visuals rather than capture them simultaneously, you definitely view them differently. So they're almost like two different mediums working together rather than being captured at the same time. They're supporting each other in various different ways than traditionally you would see. I mean, even though most Hollywood films do Foley and stuff, so it's not uncommon, but more for our other films in practice. But it's definitely painstaking time, especially Charlie was huge on Foley, but even when we don't do Foley and we're just doing sound designs like in Ella, we definitely scratched our heads on how to score that film for a long time, so it's definitely an equal amount of time. Yeah.
I really enjoy Ella and the Rabbit and Charlie, and I like the way that you use your own children in your films. I think that is really awesome that you do that. We liked it so much, my husband and I, that we thought it was really important to bring our children today so that they can get a feel of how this works. And we want to use them as well because my husband is a filmmaker and we want to use them as well because he's doing a few commercials.
Yeah, working with children is a challenge. And with Charlie, often we shot 15 minutes. Like that's all we shot for the day because he was done. 3.5. The attention span is pretty limiting. But it can be. It's rewarding when it works.
Are the children family members, or how did you find them?
Yeah, those are my 2 little ones. They, it's interesting. It's hard as an artist to decide whether or not you're going to use your family members, and then you have to scrutinize whether your kids are interesting enough to look at for a period of time, which is another conflict as an artist against a parent as well. But they both they got stopped enough in the street when they were little, with people kind of commenting on how interesting they are to look at, that I felt it wasn't just me that thought they had an interesting, appeal. And it also gave us the freedom, I think, because with Elias specifically, for example, he was in this really weird phase of doing all this really weird stuff with his mouth. He's like constantly sticking his tongue out, and there's so much footage we couldn't use because he's just playing with his tongue the whole time. And it allowed us the time to really, it took us probably 2 months to shooting these 10-minute bits over and over and over again to really get it. And I knew that if I used them, that would give me the freedom to not have to contact a parent and bring the parent on set and those stuff.
I think what a lot of people fail to realize too is like, with kids, it's really nice because you get this really authentic performance, but making them walk from point A to B is like, trying to get an actor to cry on screen. It's very, it becomes a very difficult process. So there is a lot of direction, but a nice mix of also capturing these really natural moments, which is, I think the true benefit of working with children.
Did the rabbit just happen to come along, or was he planned?
He was very much planned. It was a really funny story because we decided to get a rabbit, so we go on Craigslist, and we find this lady who has a rabbit for $20, and we're poor, so we're like, that's beautiful. And so we go there, and she has tons of rabbits. Her whole house is full of rabbits. She has rabbits with these nice soft beds. We go outside, there's rabbits on these treadmills. Some of them are sunbathing. And she just keeps we're like, oh yeah, awesome. She just keeps taking us past all these really happy rabbits. And then she's takes us into the corner of her backyard in this shed. She just opens up the door and she's like, he's a little timid, he can be aggressive sometimes. And the corner is this, so she gives us the rabbit. I was like, okay, well, how much for the cage? She's like, no, you can have the rabbit and the cage, and here's some food and some other stuff for $20. And I was like, something's up with this rabbit.
The whole time there's this little boy, this big, he had a tie-dye t-shirt with a knight and a dragon on it. And it just said Monterey, and he had a rat tail, and he was just laughing at us the whole time.
And he was a pain. He was. I've never felt like an animal can fully understand us more than that rabbit. Because there were times it took off and I'd be so upset. I'm like, we're gonna leave you. This is the woods. This grass is food. We're out of here. And then he would hop back to us. You know, I'd threaten him. And
he was a bona fide movie star.
yeah, I was like, this is unbelievable how much he's responding.
Definitely diva. The best would be like we'd be talking about a shot, and then the rabbit would just take off running, and then Robert would just start sprinting after the rabbit, and then the kid would just see his moment of freedom and then sprint the opposite way. Like, oh crap! So we're both chasing this kid and this rabbit, you know, out on this green belt at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Every car that drove by must have thought we were crazy. So, if you're interested in your sanity, I wouldn't recommend shooting with kids and animals.
And a rabbit, yeah. Any other questions you guys have? All right. Oh.
I was interested in you use this wind sound under a lot of your pieces, and I actually didn't notice it the first time I saw the bowling piece. I didn't notice it because I was so busy listening to the narrative, and then this time I listened to it. It was interesting. There's no sounds of bowling pins or anything, and you explained your process about why that is. But I was wondering why you didn't. Maybe this is a very obvious question, but why you didn't think to bring back bowling pin sound, and why this, or more importantly, why this wind sound is so important. So it's all in almost all of the pieces.
Yeah. Well, the wind sounds in a lot of the pieces for various reasons. We were talking about Walter Murch earlier, and we're definitely influenced by his theories on sound a lot. And so he told this really good story about when he was doing sound for THX, and he was trying to get a hallway to be very loud, and so he had 100 people talking in a hallway, but he couldn't get the volume up very loud. And then while he was kind of figuring out trying how to do that, he put a sound with a lot of volume in the hallway, and instantly he was peaking. So for us, it's kind of what's giving volume to the piece and catching all the edges, so every sound gets like kind of beefed up and better sounding because of the sound. And in a lot of the particular pieces, it's in there for various reasons. With the American Nobodies, there's no like talking head sections in the piece. And that's really because we want you to feel like they're almost in their head, you know, it's almost like you're inside of them. And so the wind sound, I think, helps create that space. Like somebody commented that a lot of the pieces they saw those, it almost felt like a womb-like because you're seeing it from their perspective, from a sound point of view. We didn't include the bowling pins. We didn't make the interview, but Matt, the guy who did it, said a really interesting thing. That was when he was getting his game, you know, his perfect game, he got more nervous when people stopped doing things rather than saying things, because he was part of a big bowling community, so they didn't want to jinx him. You know, he had hit like 7 strikes in a row, and so it wasn't weird. You know, they didn't be like, "Oh, you almost have a perfect game." What tripped him out was that all of a sudden they stopped high-fiving him, they stopped talking to him. Progressively, like things sounded like the sound just started going away. So if you look closely in that piece, when he gets his first strike, all the sound dips out. So that's what we're trying to replicate in the sound design with that.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. All the American Nobodies are online. Season 1. A lot of what you guys saw was season 2. So, it's AmericanNobodies.com.